He loved it. He at times he didn't love it, and at times he was adamant that he didn't love it. But he kept with it. He kept going, and he would never let it just, you know, if he wasn't competitive, he wasn't running good enough or whatever, he would go so long and he would say, okay, we got to do something.
Welcome on to the Backstretch. I'm News 5's Heather Williams, and it's sort of a sad week for those of us involved in the Backstretch. Charlie Henderson, who is the owner of Abingdon-based Henderson Motorsports, passed away at the age of 88. Abingdon is just down the road from Bristol, which is where I live, where I operate. His team, Henderson Motorsports, is who our crew chief expert, Chris Carrier. He works for Charlie, or worked for Charlie. Charlie's team, Henderson Motorsports, the second oldest team in NASCAR right now. The Wood brothers are the oldest. Charlie's team was founded in 1975, started racing in the Cup Series, well, then I guess the Winston Cup Series, in 1982. 50 years. Charlie's been around a long time. His contribution to the sport is unmatched. So this week's Backstretch is going to be a little bit different. We're going to talk about some of the headlines from Mexico City. Obviously, it's a big race, a lot of things went on, and definitely some things we need to talk about. We'll look ahead to Pocono. And then instead of having a guest this week, Chris is kind of my guest because I wanted Chris to spend some time with me and really share some stories and help communicate to you who Charlie was, because I say it when I'm talking with Chris, but it's kind of my mission. I started this before Charlie passed, but it's my mission to help younger fans understand who Charlie Henderson was and what he contributed to the sport of NASCAR, because I think it's really important. So we're going to spend some extra time with Chris this week talking about Charlie, his legacy on the sport, and swapping a few stories and memories of Charlie. So that'll be the agenda for this week. Kind of a little bit different backstretch, but I think an important one. Joining us now is our crew chief, Chris Carrier, who's also the crew chief for the number 75 Food Country Truck in the Craftsman Truck Series. Shane Van Gisbergen gets the win at Mexico City. I don't think this is really a big surprise to anyone. The guy's just about as good as anyone on a road course, maybe the best that exists in NASCAR. But his win reignites the debate about win and get in the playoffs, and if guys below, say, 30 in the point standing should get an automatic bid into the postseason. So what do you think? Is SVG a playoff driver?
Well, I saw one source of social media, Instagram. I think Richard Petty actually made a comment or something about, you know, the win and you're in, and you're not even 30th or what, something like that. He said that just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, I got to kind of agree with him on that a little bit. I know this system is the priority is to reward winning. You know, I get that. This may be a thing that it's like, I don't know whether this really, he should be qualified or not. Now, in my opinion, if he goes on and wins another race.
Which is I was going to bring that up. There's a really good possibility that he's going to win either at Sonoma or Watkins Glen or the road course or the street course in Chicago.
Somewhere. And I feel like, there's good possibility of that. I think anybody who runs all the races should be in the playoffs if they win 2 races. I think that, but maybe this is a tweak that NASCAR needs to look at and say, maybe we need to put a asterisk on the win thing.
But don't all sports have people that are in the playoffs that maybe don't really have a realistic chance of winning a championship? I mean, you look at March Madness, 16 seeds, they're probably not going to win. But if they upset someone, you know, a couple years ago, Bubba Wallace came in as like the 14th or 15th seed in the playoffs and advanced to the second round. Joey Logano was a higher seed, did not make it, but then he got knocked out the next round. Usually, especially in NASCAR, those that aren't consistent, the early rounds are going to clear them out. And why shouldn't you be rewarded for winning a race?
Well, that's a good point. I think that's why, I think, Heather, I've said before, I like this system. I think that it's not perfect. And I think that even though it's been going along a good while now, I think as times change And this stuff is getting really competitive. I mean, there's more and more teams that are drivers that are, really capable of winning a race somewhere or multiple races somewhere. Not every week, not everywhere, but their equipment and the people around them, the resources they can draw from, there's just more and more, and the drivers' abilities too. There's more and more that again, we see it in the truck series. There's 25 trucks that can win a race. The equipment is there, the technology, and you say, well, can the driver win a race? And probably not everywhere, every week, but maybe somewhere. And this is just kind of changing world. I think it just needs to be kind of a changing conversation.
Well, you say no system's perfect, and people talk about when it used to be a full season championship. That certainly wasn't perfect. The year that Matt Kenseth won his championship, he won 1 race, and Ryan Newman, I believe, won 6 that year.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're just going to give championships based on who's been the best all year, then, my Kansas City Chiefs would have 2 more championships because they lost 2 Super Bowls where they had the best record, but they would also have 1 fewer because 2 years ago they were not the best team and they won the championship. So, I mean, part of the drama of playoffs is the drama of playoffs. We give regular season championships in all sports, but then the playoffs are just added drama, in my opinion.
Yeah. I don't know. There's almost an argument in the back of my head, and boy, this would really be complicated, but maybe have a season point champion and maybe have a playoff champion.
I mean, I don't really see anything wrong with that. I think that the money would probably be diluted quite a bit because, the money is what people care about. That's why I don't really care about that regular season championship and the points too much for that.
Yeah.
Other than it helps them in the...
I just think that, I would probably say as a crew chief, as a team member, the points championship, like it probably would mean more to the team and the people in the shop a little bit, because it's like their cars, that means their cars performed every week, every race, and outlasted everybody every race. So that might take a little bit, that might hold more water in those people's glasses, but I still think it's just it's not a perfect scenario. Is there a perfect scenario? Probably not.
No, there really isn't.
I mean, and I think one thing why people have liked NASCAR racing so long and so much is that hey, there was a lot of things that just had discussion. It kept them having discussions all the time, and some people didn't like this. Right. This, that, all those Fords are cheating, and all these people, and this guy's he's a dirty driver, and all this. Well, this is why they come back and watch and pay attention. They want to know. I remember the year that Bill Elliott came back, and when he won all the races, I think it was '85, came back at Talladega and made up 2 laps by himself. After getting down, after having a flat tire early in the race or something happened, and he was 2 laps down, he came back, without drafting help, came back, unlapped himself twice, and then won the race. And that was a big, like, oh gosh, he's cheating. There's no way. Everything's got, nobody should be able to do that. But it was conversation for a long time, and it kept people talking about racing.
If NASCAR fans didn't have something to complain and debate about, they would know what to do with themselves.
That's true. It's all right.
Carson Hocevar was fined by his race team Spire Motorsport for his comments online about Mexico City. Carson also issued an apology. At the same time, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Confronted Hocevar about an encounter that might be forthcoming once they got stateside.
Yep.
Do you think all these distractions are going to eventually start to derail his on-track development?
I think they can. I mean, now, the race team coming out, and you know what? I'm proud of that race team. I'm proud of the management. I don't know really who made this decision. Doesn't really matter to me. It's they did what they thought was right. It was a very degrading comment, and maybe there might have been 1,000 more people that made the same comment, but somehow it made it to social media, and it got out, and it's just kind of pulled down the whole show over the weekend. You know, it's good. The shows were good. The races were good. The racing was good. There was a lot of people had good things to say about the whole trip, the whole event. That's an area, an avenue that NASCAR wants to go down. They have been. And, you know, come back to Carson, again, we've talked about this, and everybody knows it. I mean, he's got more raw talent in his thumb than most people ever dream of
Even
having.
his competitors are saying that. Denny
Yeah,
Hamlin has said that. I mean,
it's obvious. He's got speed. He can do a lot of things. It's like you look at him sometimes, you say, my goodness, how is he doing that without, how is he so much faster? How is he crashing? How's he doing this? And he hadn't been driving Cup cars very long.
and he skipped Xfinity Series.
And he's pretty much skipped the Xfinity Series. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. And it's like, you know, the young man just, he can be a superstar if he needs to get his stuff together.
Well, here's the thing. I've seen a lot of comments on social media about, is he not allowed to have an opinion, this, that, and the other. Well, a couple of things. First of all, he signed a contract that basically said he can't embarrass the company. His car this weekend was sponsored by a Mexican company. The only car fully sponsored by a company in Mexico. And one of the things that Carson has had to learn, I've had to learn this personally, my mouth has gotten me in trouble since I was probably 2.5 years old.
Oh.
Just because something is in your brain doesn't mean it has to come out of your mouth. Yeah. And to be able to control that, and it took me a long time, probably into my 40s, to be able to understand that. But this has become an expensive lesson for him, and maybe that will help him understand. He seemed on social media to say all the right things in his apology. Now we'll see going forward what he can do, because he also has the Ricky Stenhouse issue to deal with. And Ricky, I know from personal experience, because I saw it in person at North Wilkesboro, when Ricky says that he's going to come settle business with you, Ricky is going to come settle business with you.
Yeah, yeah.
Carson might want to have a bodyguard this week at Pocono.
Well, they also might want to have a doctor on hand pretty close, because now Ricky can, I mean, let's face it, when he hit Kyle Busch at North Wilkesboro you're talking about, he punched him. Ooh, I've seen, I mean, I'm not a real boxing or UFC or anything like that fan, but I've seen some stuff in boxing matches that weren't, that were light compared to that. I mean, he can deliver, and you know, from what I saw of it, the angle of it and everything like that, it was uncalled for on the racetrack.
Well,
he took him out. He was a lap down.
It was not intentional,
no.
But
no,
when you're a lap down, you need to race smarter than that.
Yeah,
that was Ricky's point. Carson wasn't going to gain anything at all by passing Ricky Stenhouse Jr. They weren't on the same lap.
No, and when you're behind the wheel of that car, when you're in that seat, you have control of the steering wheel, you have control of the brake, you have control of the gas, you have control of the shifter, everything in there. Nobody else has anything to do. They cannot control it, period. You have control of it. And you can, you know, drivers can make excuses about, well, my spotter didn't tell me this, or my spotter told me that, or you know, I was tired, or the car wasn't handling. That's horse malarkey. You're the guy. And now he's representing a lot of people. You know, every time he's out there on that racetrack, those guys got to remember you're representing not only yourself. It's not about just you. It's about all those people.
Right. And what is that
that
Mexican company supposed to say to their constituents and their consumers and their bosses when their driver is talking smack about their country?
That's just, you know, that's just really, that's very childish. And I mean, somehow or another, the young man has got to take a step back. Somebody's got to get a hold of him. And they got to kind of manage him day by day, and they've got to teach him and lecture to him about, here, listen, you've got to think, you've got to change your thought process here. You've got to change your priorities about what you say and how you use your time and what's going on when you're on the racetrack, when you're off the racetrack, when you're on the radio, when you're doing interviews, when you're talking to whoever it is, your crew chief or your hauler driver or your media person or whoever it might be. You cannot let your guard down, because you are now whether you like it or not, you are a focus. You're a spotlight of a lot of people's attention.
That's what I was going to say. I like Carson Hocevar. I love what he brings to the table. I love chaos. I love Denny Hamlin. I love Ross Chastain. I love those guys because I just love that. It brings flavor to the sport. It reminds me of me when I was younger, for sure. But I don't want to have to talk about Carson Hocevar anymore unless he's winning races.
Well, I mean, I've said before, I'm hoping that he, you know, there'll be a point where he'll win a race or two, and then one or two things are going to happen. It's either going to get worse or it may get better, but I'm hoping it'll get better. I'm hoping he'll say, okay, I've made it. I can win races in the Cup Series, and I'm here, and I'm a every week competitor. The guys know that I'm here to win, and so on and so forth. So now I can take a little time to you know, polish myself up a little bit as far as who I am to the public. I'm a good race car driver. Everybody knows I've accomplished that, and I'm going to figure out, okay, how can I make myself a long career out of doing this and have people behind me and have people trust me. Right now, the people at Spire and you know, they're trying to sell sponsorship for either next year or the rest of this year or 2 years down the road or all the above. And you know, they're probably saying, can we trust this guy?
Yeah.
And they're saying, my gosh, he's going to win a race any minute. I mean, anytime. He may win this week. He may win in a month. He may win 4 or 5 races before the end of the season.
But see, will competitors let him? Because one of the things that I've heard drivers talk about, and I think I was listening to Sirius XM radio earlier this week, and Danielle Trotta was talking about a conversation that she had with Carl Edwards, and how he was about to win a race, and Mark Martin was racing him really hard and was making it really difficult, and somebody passed him, and Carl went to Mark really mad, and he was like, why are you racing me like this? And Mark said, because you've raced me this way since you got in the series, and I'm not going to let up until you change the way you race me. Yeah. When you race me the way you want to be raced, then I will do the same. Yeah,
I guess you know, what you're saying there, if you think about it, if you reverse the roles on Sunday, Hocevar was running maybe in the lead lap and trying to make a good day out of his day, and Ricky Stenhouse was a lap down, and you know, ran over top of him, caused him to spin out or whatever. You know, then how would Carson have perceived that? He just said, well, you're trying to get me back. You know, Your example was very good there, because I've heard many competitive winning Cup car drivers say that same thing. I will race you the way you race me. And if you're going to come into this sport and you're going to be in our top division and you're going to race us every week and you're going to be trying to win, that's fine. But don't hit me 10 times in the first 100 laps trying to get around me, and then when you're trying to win a race and I'm there competing, you know, don't expect me not to touch you, because I'm gonna hammer you. I remember one that was definitely up front about that was Rusty Wallace. He had the lecture with Ernie Irvin, and I remember that. He finally told him, he said, look, bud, I'm gonna race you like you race me, and if you keep on, I'm gonna wreck your hind end, and I'm gonna do it more than once. And you know,
there's a lot of similarities between Carson and Ernie in the way they race.
There's a lot of similarities between Carson Hocevar and Ernie Irvin's. Height is not one of them, or body build, but that doesn't matter. When you're in that seat behind the wheel, it doesn't really matter. It's just like how you control yourself and how you control your race car, and what you know. You can say, well, I just messed up. I've heard him say, I just messed up so many times. Well, it's time to quit messing up.
Yeah, you're a big boy now.
It's time to quit. You know, you've got the talent. You can do it. Don't tell me you can't control your car. If you can't control your car, slow down.
Or go back to the Truck Series.
Or go back to Truck Series.
Where
don't do that. He is going to do that this weekend at Pocono.
And he'll probably win.
He'll probably win.
He's that good.
Talent. He's that good.
This week, as you mentioned, Pocono, that is where we were headed. So what are the keys to the Tricky Triangle?
Oh. That's Heather.
It's a difficult track.
It's difficult. It is a driver's track. I know I've said that a lot. It's a driver's track. 3 completely different turns to a long racetrack. You go in that place up. I remember the first time I ever went in up there, and I looked around, and I got somewhere on the truck where I could kind of see most all of the track. And I looked around, I'm thinking, gosh, this thing looks like it's 4 or 5 miles long. I mean, it's huge. And the front straightaway is just forever. And the other two, what they call the straightaway going into the tunnel turn, it's longer than anything else besides the front straightaway. But it's very difficult because the turns the 3 turns are completely different in banking, in shape, and in length, and also where on the racetrack as far as up in the middle, low, high that you can run through those turns. It's the texture, everything's different. And to me, it's, as a crew chief, as a race engineer, setup guy, or whatever, it's very hard to know, okay, now what are we trying to accomplish here? You just have to kind of get like okay, we want to be good coming off the 3rd turn so that you got a lot of speed coming down the longest straightaway, and that's the front straightaway, and because that's the most important. That's where you make up the most time or lose the most time, and then you have to be able to use that speed to get into turn 1. And I think the rest of it you depend on your driver. I really do. He's got to adapt and go. Now this thing is long straightaway, so there's it really churns that engine. And it really makes it whine a little bit, and then you get down to the turn 1, and it's pretty heavy braking to get slowed down enough, because there's not much banking really anywhere. There's some banking in turn 1. There's a little bit of banking in the tunnel turn 2. There's pretty much about as much banking as this table's got right here in turn 3. So it's a tough place. There's going to be fuel mileage. There's going to be pit strategy. There's going to be cars that will run in the back and for a little while and use pit strategy, and also it's kind of like a road course. They'll do the pit strategy backwards from the end of the race back, and you'll see people that will show up front, and you'll say, where'd they come from? But it's an exciting track, because you'll also see, especially after restarts, you'll see 3, 4, 5 wide spread out all the way down and racing really hard. Hopefully they won't get real strung out after the restarts. It's a cool track. Hope the weather's good. A lot of rain up there, so it's always good racing, interesting racing, pit strategy. Might get a surprise winner. Might be Carson Hocevar.
Might be a stretch. So usually each week we have a guest on the show, but instead I didn't want to book a guest because I wanted to spend some extra time with you to talk about our friend, Craftsman Truck Series owner Charlie Henderson, who passed away on Saturday. His team is the one you work for.
Yes, ma'am.
It is the 2nd oldest team in the sport, behind only the Wood brothers. Let's try to, and I'll let you go first, just put into words what Charlie has meant to NASCAR.
He started in '75. He bought a race car to run locally at Kingsport Speedway in what was called NASCAR Late Model Sportsman. Now, that was a NASCAR division at that time. That is what is now the Xfinity Series, the evolution of late model sportsman racing, which was kind of all across, at least all across the southeast and up the northeast seaboard, you might say, all the way up into Maine, and also some in Canada, because they actually were tracks that they ran late model sportsman races in Canada. Charlie went with a friend. I think your interview with him tells this, to see some races around. I think the actual friend was Mitch Crabtree, I believe. But they went and watched some races at Kingsport, and Charlie got interested. He said, I want one of those. So he got with a local guy named Spenny Clendenin, who later on worked for Richard Childress and retired at Richard Childress Racing in the engine department. Worked there many years, very smart man. They have a good relationship, and they went and bought a Dodge kit car from Petty Enterprises.
I'm fascinated by the fact that was even a thing that you could do, was just buy a little kit from...
Yep, it was a big thing. It was called Direct Connection. you went through Petty Enterprises, who was, of course, at that time, been running Chrysler products, Dodges, and Plymouths, winning a lot of races and championships and this, that, and other. You could buy parts and pieces. You could buy the frame and the roll cage kit and weld it all together. You could buy that and buy pieces to put on it, or anything in any kind of order you wanted to, or you could go buy a whole complete turnkey car, motor and all. So I can't remember exactly what flavor they went, what recipe they got, but they got them a kid. I was 14, 15 years old at the time, so my awareness wasn't on the top just yet. But they bought the car, and their first driver was Bobby Hall, who was local resident. Bobby lives, I believe, in Bluntville, Tennessee right now, still going. And they ran a couple years, and later on he had Larry Etzman drive that same car. And I remember when I was like 18-ish, Larry came by the house, and he wanted me to help him. I was a good friend of Larry's because he drove Fred Whitaker, and he used to come by my house and take me to the shop because I wasn't old enough to drive. And Charlie said, I want to get in the mainstream. I want to go buy whatever's winning races in this type racing. And they called up Mike Laughlin from Simpsonville, South Carolina, ordered up a brand new car, Pontiac Grand Am. Man, that thing was sweet. Really nice, good, powerful engine. His brother Jackie Laughlin built the engine, turnkey car, won the first race at Kingsport. And from that time on, that feeling of winning, of succeeding in him, that's his car, that's what's kept him in it to this point. And I think he's just what he means to it. He is one of those guys. He is one of those guys that got into it. He loved it. He at times he didn't love it, and at times he was adamant that he didn't love it. But he kept with it. He kept going, and he would never let it just, you know, if he wasn't competitive, he wasn't running good enough or whatever, he would go so long and he would say, okay, we got to do something here.
Well, one of the things that struck me when I was putting together the little mini who Charlie was, it's not really a documentary.
Yes,
I'd started on a documentary, but unfortunately Charlie passed before I got to finish it. I might still finish it at some point. Was a soundbite from Parker where he talked about, the thing about Charlie was he was always asking, what do we need to do to get better?
Yep.
What do we need to do to win races?
That's exactly right.
And when you talk to people in the garage area, and when I put out on X on Saturday, once you told me that the family knew and everybody knew that Charlie had passed, the #1 comment in my replies or in the retweets was, that team always did the most with what they had. They always came, they were always competitive. They very rarely showed up out to lunch. And I think that Henderson Motorsports and Charlie and what he did gave backyard racers, guys that race at Kingsport, guys that race at Motor Mile or wherever,
yes, ma'am,
hope.
Yep.
Because he's doing what they want to do. Yep. With not the biggest budget, without factory support, with all those things, winning races. I mean, NASCAR could take away the race at Daytona all they want. I was there, I saw it, y'all won that race. Y'all won at Talladega, you won at Mid-Ohio in a truck, you won at Bristol and at Dover in the Xfinity Series, like...
And Martinsville.
And Martinsville. And beyond that, there was a season, the second or the last season you guys had with Parker, where every time you showed up to the racetrack, you guys were in the top 10. Yeah. You guys were like 17th in points and only ran like 15 races that year.
That was a good year. What you're saying, now keep in mind, through all this time that we're talking about, Charlie was also running a very successful business, but a small business compared to what his competition was, and he was fine with that. He had opportunity way back when he was making good money and had his store going, which was only at that time probably maybe 5 or 6 stores total. He had opportunity to combine and to be a part of a bigger conglomeration. So, okay, we'll just have a bunch of stores and we'll make money hand over fist, and it won't be easy, but it'll be easy. And he didn't want to do that, Heather. He turned it down. He said, no, I want to run my own store. I want my own people. I want to do my own way. Yeah, it's going to be smaller. It's going to be harder. But I want, that's that feeling of success, you know, and he understood that feeling of success, both in business and in racing. Racing was the replacement for golf, fishing, hunting, whatever else that other people do for enjoyment, and it satisfied his competitive desire. But I tell you, he had a competitive desire in his business too, because he don't, you know, when somebody else is selling more groceries, having more people, he wants to know that same thing. What do we got to do to get better? What do we got to do to make people come in our store and want to shop with us instead of somebody else? And all the other businesses that he had his hands in here and there, he's the same way. And, you know, one thing that I'm afraid of about NASCAR racing, one fear that I have, is when the car owners like Joe Gibbs, Richard Childress, Roger Penske, well, I'll say Roush Yates right now. It's a little bit, and now they have Keselowski. But anyway, those guys like that, when they're not around anymore, I'm not sure what the future will be, because the owners aren't going to be true racers. Charlie was a true racer. He wasn't a guy that had
for sure. But I think in that, and then we'll get back to Charlie. You have Denny Hamlin at 2311. You have Keselowski now, Roush Keselowski.
Which are racers.
You have Jeff Gordon,
which are
running Hendrick, basically when Hendrick decides to retire or whatever may happen with that. So there are, and I think eventually Ty Gibbs will take over Joe Gibbs Racing. So. I think that's the path.
Yes.
His mom is running it now.
Yeah.
So I think the answers are there. When I think about Charlie, the thing beyond just being a racer, and I think this is why I bonded with him, is he's a car guy. He was a car guy.
Oh, yes. Yes, you're
when
right about that.
When I first walked into the shop the first time and saw all of those beautiful T-Birds, my mouth watered. I'm a car person. I'm a Ford person. My dad worked for Ford. So obviously T-Birds and Mustangs were the cars that I always just like salivated over. And his love for anything fast, any car, the beauty of cars, that doesn't exist that much anymore.
No.
There aren't that many car people anymore. No, and I think that's why I bonded with Charlie, was just beyond the racing. I mean, there's a lot of race fans. Everybody in that shop was a race fan. But I feel like Charlie and I, we were car people.
Yeah. He had that, and he knew a lot about the T-Birds. He knew a lot about, he was a 50s guy.
Yeah.
You know, when the T-Birds came out of the 50s, 55, 6, 7, that was his love, his passion. And I remember when he put that whole, we call it the T-Bird side of our shop, that whole, you know, all the 50s stuff. There's a soda bar there, there's jukeboxes, there's gas pumps, there's 25 Elvis Presleys, Marilyn Monroe's, James Dean's, Humphrey Bogart's, and many others. There's a lot of stuff that commemorates war, you know, wartime stuff. Not only World War II, but the Korean War, the Vietnam War. He's had people. He was a veteran himself. He was a sergeant, and you know, he had passions about that stuff. And again, there's, you know, I was thinking yesterday. I don't really know anybody. I don't really know anybody really like him.
Yeah,
I really don't. I don't know anybody quite like Charlie. That you know, and you know, another thing about Charlie, he wasn't afraid to be wrong. He had a lot of big decisions every day. What he felt like would be about his business, about anything. You know, things that, you know, and he would think about some stuff and brood over and ask this, that, and other, and then probably he said, okay, this is what we're going to do. Come, you know, water, high water, that's what we're going to do. And if it goes okay, fine. If it don't go okay, then we'll do something else when the time comes. And he didn't look back. I love that.
Yeah.
And sometimes okay, that didn't turn out so good. That failed. Well, let's do something else. You know, figure out what we got to do. And that, again, that was about his business. That was about his race team. That was about all the other things that he did. He loved his farm. He's got a farm with I think right now he's got 128 cattle. I think Coach told me, Coach Billy Wyatt, one of his best friends, and a friend and a helper at our race team. He keeps up with a lot of stuff, and he's like a lot of the rest of us. He's a little bit lost right now because we've lost a tremendous friend. Yesterday I was thinking about something. You know, I caught myself thinking, I need to ask Charlie about this. It wasn't anything earth-shaking. It wasn't anything critical. The building wasn't going to burn down if I didn't get it right or anything like that. But it was something that I wanted to get right. I was thinking, and I'm thinking, gosh, I'd really just like to go and ask Charlie or call and ask him. And can't do that no more. But he's one of those guys. He left his impression on the town of Abington and surrounding, and a lot of people in the racing world. And we're getting calls and texts and well wishes and prayers and so on and so forth from so many people, and it's just really kind of overwhelming. You know, he's going to be very missed. He's going to be very missed by a lot of people. A lot of people know him. He was 80, going on 89 years old. In that length of time and the things he did, he's going to know a lot of people. So,
for sure.
Anyway, great man.
He's definitely going to be missed, and I have made it my personal mission to educate people, especially new fans, about who Charlie was, what he did for the sport. There is a small piece, as I said, called Charlie's Way, the story of Henderson Motorsports, here on YouTube. So you can check it out and learn more about Charlie, and my mission continues because I'm gonna miss him, and I want everybody to know the Charlie that I knew.
Yeah, me too. I have a lot of stories about him, you know, because I met him in, well, 51 years ago, and I've worked for him back and forth down through the years. I've been at Henderson Racing now since 2014, the last time I come back from working in Carolina and Cup teams and this, that, and whatever, and came back, and I've never regretted that decision. I have fun every day. And Charlie was never, I mean, you know, the thing too, we could always laugh at ourselves. You know, we could always have a good laugh. I say, you know, can you believe we did that? And he just die laughing. He said, yeah, oh boy, well, okay, we'll do something else. But just still laugh. He wasn't, you know, there was no arrogance about him to say, well, hey, I do everything right, everything I say is good and all this stuff like that, like a lot of people we got now. But he wasn't like that. He knew that, man, he's just a guy. He loved animals, he loved his dogs, he loved his cows, just down to down to earth stuff. He didn't try to outdress everybody. He just lived life. He wanted to love life every day. He wanted to do things that he enjoyed, and he did it. And what funds he had to do it, he did the best he could to have the best he could and keep going. And man, he's provided for a lot of people. I think they got like 500 employees. That's pretty good. And they've hung in there 60-some years now since the first store that Charlie built as what is now a food country.
Right.
Right there in Abington. I remember him telling me, he said I had to go to the bank and borrow the money to buy the cinder block to lay the foundation of that store. And here we are 61 or 2 years later, whatever it is, or no more than that, 65 years later, you know, still going strong, trying to get better every day. And he's instilled that passion in Don and the people that run the office, run the stores, Adam, Nick, Mark Brown, several people that are in that clip. They're at it every day. And that's what Charlie, you know, that's what Charlie was. He was at it every day. He was at that office every single day. Some kind of man, good man. We're going to miss him. I'm going to miss him a lot. He's a good friend of mine.